Hey, I'm Scott with Harvest Helper, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a disassembly, reassembly on a Twister T2. So let's get started. For the sake of time, I already popped these two bolts out of the cover right there. But you just got these two bolts that hold that belt cover on right there. And then next is this pin right here, and that just holds this slider guide right here. Just put that somewhere you're not going to lose it. And then the next thing is put your hand under here and then loosen the weight, or loosen this lever right here by turning it to the left. That allows you to lift this up, and then you put the tension back on it by turning it back to the right again. And now you're able to take the belt off and it stays right there, so when you put the belt back on. So then, now that you got the belt off, the cover off, we're able to wiggle that out. We also pop this cover off, which you have two Allen bolts that hold that cover on as well. So then you just wiggle this back and forth as you take it out to not damage these bearings or the tumbler itself. Use two hands. The tumblers are expensive, so be careful with them. Set that over in a safe place. Then you're able to come over here, pop this tumbler guard off. They had a lot of problems with people jumping scissors and stuff into there, and OSHA and standard made it to where it's got the safety sensor on. So you just need to make sure when you line it back up, you line it up with that sensor right there, lines up to this sensor right here. Sometimes you gotta kind of push it down hard to get it to fault light to shut off, but that's what shuts that fault light off once you got that safety sensor back on there. So now that you got it to this point, now you're able to take your upper shroud and your lower shroud off. You need to come over here. So you just take these, and you see how they sit like that? You want to put them to where they go into the middle, and then you pull it over, so like that. That unfrees that pin. That, same thing on the other side. Pull it straight out like that. That's the upper shroud, and here's your lower shroud. So this is where your tube connects right here. This is where your trim material is gonna fall into when you're trimming and get sucked into your vacuum. Here's your helix blade, also known as your reel blade. Where you're spinning around, that's where your action happens right there, where your trimming happens. So you can pop that all the way out of there. Now you're able to really get in there and clean everything too. If you want to get in there even deeper, you can lift this bed knife up by going opposite direction as tighten. Tighten takes the bed knife down towards the reel blade, and loosen lifts that bed knife right there up, because a lot of material can get lodged underneath there and you're not able to just pop it right up like you are on the T4. So that's what you can do. You can also take these bolts off on the side if you really want to pop the bed knife off, but I would just loosen it on the 5/8 bolts here on the front. If you come around over here on the front, I'll show them which bolts I'm talking about. So these right here are 5/8 inch bolts. I usually just use a socket wrench, and I just put it on there, and you can kind of barely see up on here. It says tighten, and it goes towards that direction. You want to go loosen to lift the bed knife up towards the tumbler. You tighten to put the bed knife back down towards the spinning reel blades. And that's it on the disassembly. All right, for your reassembly, just everything in reverse that you just did. So what you ended with is what you start with. That lower shroud. Just pop it there. Kind of need to do a little wiggling to get it in there sometimes. It has a, there you go. So you want to make sure that it's all the way in there. How you do that, if you come around to this side, making sure that this comes all the way up to right here. So that's the lower shroud in there correctly. So if we come back over to this side, and it's also on top of this plate, just a little bit above that right there. And then you slide this upper shroud see it under these things, but up on top of this blade. And this cover goes on the outside of that. You see what sits in there, that groove right there, nice? And then you just pop these levers back over. Pop that one over. Pop that one over. And the tumbler goes in before the belt, because it's the tumbler belt that you're putting back on. Work it with 2 hands, again, just so that you don't do any damage. Keep this open. You put the belt back on this groove right here where the tumbler is. Make sure this is still open. Go around the pulley right there. Make sure it's not like hanged up on something or hung up on something. And then loosen it. You just want the tension to where it sits. You don't want to push down on it or anything. And then I just tighten it back up when it sits where it's supposed to. On its natural tension, I just tighten it back up. And then this is a tumbler guide to make sure this doesn't just come out. Just locks it in there. And it has a little bearing right here too. See, and you want to make sure all these bearings are functioning and everything too when you're doing their checks. So, and then you got to find your cotter pin if you don't lose it by now. Pop the cotter pin back in there once you put the guide back on there, tumbler guide on there. And again, make sure your sensor's lined up. And then also, if you come over here, you see you got to do a little wiggling to get it to line up on these grooves right here. See, so once I got all 4 of these to line up, then I can just slam it straight down. And that shut the fault light off down there. You see that? Because it sensed that we're safe again. So then I take the guard back over here. This shallower guard sits on the side with the blade belt, which is the green belt. Okay? Put that guy back on there. 2 Allen bolts that hold those on still. Same thing with this side. The deeper cover is going to be for this side that has the belt for your tumbler and the guide for your tumbler. And put that guy back on there. And that's it.